Dear sisters, loving brothers, dear children, Om Sai Ram, Salam. I thank you for allowing me this opportunity on this wonderful occasion to share with you the topic that I've been given is how I came to know about Sai Baba. So it's a long story, but I'll perhaps share the gist and maybe a timeline that will, enlighten and perhaps for me to reminisce how I came to know Sai Baba. So first and foremost, Sai Baba is a multifaceted being. No amount of inquiry, learning, reading will ever bring an individual close to what Sai Baba is. But feeling is very important, and I can tell you that Swami Sathya Sai Baba is the perfect epitome of pure, selfless, unconditional love. In the mid-70s, as you know, there was no internet. TV had just come about, I think it was about 75, 76. So, to keep oneself occupied during the weekends and during holidays, books were available. So the very first time I seen a photograph of Swami was, I think it was in 1976, grade 10. I think so the exams had just finished. And one of my classmates was reading a book. And there was a photograph of Swami there, Indian guru with Afro hairstyle. It was quite amazing at that time because we did not associate people of the Indian subcontinent with Afro hairstyle. The people at that time in the sporting icon world that had Afro hairstyles was a footballer by the name of Jairzinho. I remember there was a singer by the name of Richard John Smith. But be that as it may, I developed a liking for reading of books. And one of the first books that I had bought was when I was on holiday in Pretoria in Lodium. And the name of the book was The Amazing Results of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. I found the book quite enlightening, and I bought a few of the other books in that series. And then as time progressed, there were a few more books. Now these books follow the genre of what was known as self-help, or what is today called positive psychology. It was around the late 80s and late 70s and the early 80s. And they kind of shed a different light on the mind, on thinking positively. And this was over and above my traditional religious studies that I had done, my religious practices that I do and still observe. And it added a different type of a dimension to living. Then in the early 80s, a cousin of mine and also a distant relative, a very intelligent man, a guy who spoke fantastic English, he introduced me to the Theosophical Society library. He was a member, and when time permits on a Friday, we used to go and borrow books. So they had a wide variety of books, but their books were slightly different than the ones that I was exposed to. So they covered topics of spirituality. I know one of the books that they had was a series of actually encyclopedias in volumes of a lady by the name of Alice Bailey. And she had written quite a few books on very deep spiritual topics. Some of them were obviously well beyond my understanding, but I attempted and I read them. There were also books on Theosophy, books on the Masters of Wisdom, which I found very interesting. These were highly evolved souls and beings, and some of their life stories and some of the work that they do in the inner planes. Then I was introduced slowly to the composition of human beings. So our physical bodies, the bodies of light, the etheric, astral, and the various type of dimensions that perhaps we were not known or were not exposed to at that time. So like that, I continued as much as I possibly could with my reading, and in the world of work, became a bit difficult to continue with that type of reading. And then I remember it was either at Rupanan Brothers or perhaps at Atwell's Book Health Store, where I seen the book Man of Miracles by Howard Murphy. And I found that book also quite interesting. It was about Swami. And when I started to work in 1988, one of my colleagues, Brother Ashwin, he was a Sai devotee, and in one of our conferences and team building exercises, he mentioned his experience with Swami. One of my clients that I was to deal with, Brother Kesh, he was also a devotee of Swami, and he reminded me actually last week when I met him that in 1988, when he went to Prashanti Nelam, I gave him a letter. I completely forgot about it. I also, I think, forgot the contents of the letter, but I would assume it would have to do with the 3 Ps, pay, promotion, and prospects. But hopefully if I find the letter, then one day I will reminiscence about that. So life went on, work got busy, and I was carrying on, with my work and intermittently giving attention. I wasn't reading as much as I can, but I was continuing with my religious practices to the best of my ability that I could. In 1992, Brother Ashwin contacted me once and he told me if I could come to the group and give a talk on the fasting month of Ramadan. It was around 1992 or 1997, in between that period. And they had rented a hall, and I gave a talk on the fasting month of Ramadan, the inner dimensions of what it means. And in that period, I continued with life and the twists and the turns and the immersion with life and giving, some attention to my spiritual life. But I always had this in the back of my mind about trying to unfold, trying to understand things to the best of my ability. In around 2014, so I had quite a bit of leave due to me. And our superiors at work was encouraging us to take this. I think it was around the month of June, July. So I decided I will take some leave and I won't go anywhere. I'll spend a lot of time reading some of the books that I had in the past, and I will dedicate this few weeks that I have to, reconnect and, perhaps, continue with my religious practices with a greater, zeal and enthusiasm than I had before, and because I have the time available. But one thing was always paramount in my mind during this time that I was, had for myself on this leave. And as I was doing some voluntary fasting over and above the traditional regular prayers, the additional voluntary prayers, I sort of in my mind, I was having this very strong thought that spirituality, unfoldment, the key to it is your heart. You've got to have a very clean heart. You've got to purify your heart, I remember. And I read a book that I read many years ago. It's called Ponder on This. And I also read a part of a chapter of a book that I read many years ago. It was called Grow Rich Through Peace of Mind. The author was Napoleon Hill. And to the latter part of that book, he relates an incident when he was in his study room and a being appeared to him where they spoke about we as human beings, we all have challenges or what we call the demons within ourselves. Or in Islam it is called the nafs, the lower forces. And he enumerated all of them. And he mentioned that when a person conquers all those inner foes, then you pass through the jungle of life. And I was kind of ruminating on that quite a bit and quite intently. And then my holidays had finished and I reported back to work. And I got a call from Brother Ashwin, and it was coming near the fasting month again. And he asked me, Brother Imtiaz, could you please come and talk to our group on Ramadan? By this time, his group had got their own premises, their own center. So I said, yes, I will come. And at the appointed time, I did go there. And as I stepped into the center, I felt a lot of peace and love, the very same peace and love you feel when you go to a mosque or when you go to holy sites and places like that. The center was small, so the feeling of love and peace was quite concentrated. And then I'd given my talk and it finished. And as we were leaving, the convener of the group gave me a little packet, and this side was a book. It was gift wrapped. And the day ended, I went home and I opened the book. And the title of the book was Purifying Your Heart. It was by John Goldsworth. What I'd been thinking of earlier on, and that was the title of the book. And I read the book. And it continued, and then some other groups asked me to come and speak on the fasting month of Ramadan and few other issues. And I started speaking about as much as I could understand. And I started reading a bit more Sai literature than I had previously, reading excerpts of talks, which I found very enlightening. A lot of the things that I'd read before, Swami was able to, in his discourses, explain it in a very palatable manner. And that continued, and then in 2018, again, I was asked by a group in one of the regions out of Durban. I think it was just before the COVID period, and it was also, I think it was by-election time. So I'd given the talk and I had to leave as I had another appointment. And I was leaving the hall. There was a politician in the audience and beckoned to me, phoned me. And I didn't know a lot about the politics. I lost quite a bit of interest in it. And I said, okay, I don't know. I'm thinking in my mind as I'm leaving, but I'm thinking, the convener, don't give my number to anybody because I'll be not of use to the politician. But I was thinking this in my mind. I didn't. So the day had finished, I came home and I switched on my phone, and there was a message from the convener thanking me. And then she ends, don't worry, I didn't give your number to anybody. So that is those Sai incidences that I had experienced. So the readings of Sai literature and association, one of the books that I had read very early on is a book called Your Thoughts Can Change Your Life. A gentleman named Donald Curtis written this book, and where he spoke about how our thoughts has an effect on the trajectory of our lives. Another book that I found very interesting was The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. Joseph Murphy also studied at a university in Andhra, where he spoke about how the mind plays a role in our destiny and the challenges. And then in my readings, in my studies, and particularly in Sai literature, the whole issue of form and feeling also came into it. And how does one successfully travel on this path till you merge into divine consciousness, till you fulfill the goal of human evolution, which is to merge into divinity. So this whole issue, I came across it in Swami's talks when he speaks about constant repetition of the name of God with the love, with feeling, and with one pointed devotion and dedication. And this aligned very well to all the things that I've read. And also in Islam, where we speak about constant remembrance of God, His name, Allah, or there is no God but God, that constant repetition. So I found a great deal of alignment. And then in my further studies of Swami's literature and his talks and his discourses, and the 5 human values, truth, righteousness, peace, love, harmlessness, that leads to sacrifice, I also found that it is in Islam itself, because the 5 fundamental pillars in Islam entrench those values. The belief system in Islam entrenches truth. The 5 regular prayers entrench the principles of righteousness. Fasting in the month of Ramadan inculcates peace. It brings you back to your essential self, peace, salam. Then giving of the charity, zakat, inculcates in your heart the feeling of love for all creation and all mankind. The performance of Hajj, the pilgrimage, inculcates in you harmlessness, and all of this leads to sacrifice. And what do you have to sacrifice? you have to sacrifice the lower self. And Swami mentions this in the challenges that we have as human beings, which aligned very much to things that I had read in the past. And Swami encapsulated it in desire, anger, greed, attachment, egotism, envy, hatred. And obviously all these things have roots. And one of the ways that you overcome all this is constant thinking and repetition of the name of God. Whatever name and God that you are comfortable, and whatever form that you are comfortable with. So there was a great deal of alignment with all the things that I've read and within the faith of Islam. So my readings and association has enabled me to be a better Muslim, a better human being, with more understanding with regard to matters of a spiritual nature. As you know, spirituality and the spiritual path is vast. It's full of twists and turns and alleyways. And we as human beings, when we are treading that path, we also have challenges. We come with challenges from previous lives. We have challenges in this lives. We have challenges with regard to the 6 enemies of the human spirit that have to be overcome. And in Swami's teachings, I found that there are 2 ways that you can do it. When you attach yourself to the one, you become a hero. And the level of your heroship is in clear distinction, in clear accordance to your devotion. However, if you wish to merge into the one, when you merge into the one, everything that is his is yours. And when that happens, everything else is zero. However, to merge into the one, to stay into the one, to be with the one, and to be one with the one, you have to zero out desire, anger, greed, attachment, pride, egotism, envy, jealousy, hatred. Once those are zeroed out, you can enter into the one and be with the one. But that might be a bit of a difficult task. Then the option you have is to have 100% of the opposites. So if you're 100% desireless, you have 100% love, you have 100% contentment, you enlarge yourself to such a manner that the one opens the door and says, come in, you are one with me. And that is the path of spirituality. That is the end result of all religions. Swami has shown the path to devotees and disciples of all races, colors, castes, creeds, religion, gender. He has shown, yes, that it is possible, and he's shown it that through the path of love and service, it is definitely possible. So this, brothers and sisters, has been my journey, my pathway as to how I come to know Sai, and my limited experience with him. Remember, he has a heart-to-heart connection with each and every one. I thank you for allowing me to share this brief interlude with you of my journey, and I trust and I pray that each and every one of you will continue to have a delightful journey and reach the goal. Thank you. Salam. Jai Saram.